Welcome to Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio, News Talk, 1180 for the best in Saturday Talk Radio at 1 o'clock. And again on 1230 KGEO at 10 o'clock on Saturday. And for the best in Wednesday Talk Radio on 1410 KERI on Wednesday at 1 o'clock. And now on 1000 KKIM in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Your host is Clay Koerner, and I'm Marty Pay, and behind the big board is the producer's producer, Greg Held. Hey, Clay, that was a great show with Johnson & Johnson last week. We had Doug Johnson, author and commentator. His business background gives him a great perspective on current events. And then we had Brian Johnson, my old friend, who's the regional director for the National Right to Life League, and he's always controversial.
You know, whatever we do, Marty, I don't want to be on a radio station in Washington, D.C.
Well, as conservative as we are, there isn't much chance of us being on a show.
I'll get audited.
Yeah, for sure. We have the kind of show today that any talk show host dreams about. In the second half, we have an American legend, a woman who was instrumental in defeating the ERA 30 years ago, the president of Eagle Forum, Phyllis Schlafly, who was just voted one of the most influential women of the 20th century. Speaking of legends, our first guest is one of my favorite people to talk to, the prognosticator's prognosticator, the soothsayer's soothsayer. A man a man known to have eaten at Tui's in the San Gabriel Valley. The founder of...
Marty, this is Tobin Smith. Your audience is, going to grow tired of these platitudes, my friend.
I know.
I agree. He gives them to me all the time.
But I have so much fun with the Tobin when you're on. I really do.
I know.
I mean, I just can't resist.
Good to be with you guys. I know it's a little warm out in your area these days, so
you think?
we'll try to keep it hot for you.
Okay.
What's on your mind?
I also have to say that you're a regular for those of us those people that haven't heard you before. You're a regular on one of my favorite shows, Bulls and Bears on Fox every Saturday morning. That I understand now has over 1 million viewers.
Great show.
Yeah, we went from I think, $30,000 and a few people and a few dogs in 1999 when we started. Actually, 2000 when we started, and about 1.4 million people. Number one rated business show, basically in the world, because there are no other investment shows that have that many people. To give you an idea, that crazy guy with no hair who screams and yells has about 200,000 viewers on CNBC, which is certainly respectable. But the business block, or what we call the cost of freedom, is really sort of a phenomenon. And about every other year, Fox tries to cancel it to go with different type programming, and the viewers say, hey, we love Fox, but we need a little business and stuff other than people screaming about the IRS and so on and so forth. And so we scream about the IRS just in a different way.
We had Steve Forbes on a couple weeks ago. Great show. We had a lot of fun with him. Almost as much fun as we have with you on the show.
Steve Forbes and fun. I mean, there is a combination right there.
Well, it's funny. You wouldn't think so.
I love Mr. Forbes. I've always wanted to be a columnist in Forbes magazine since I was about 21. And every year I ask Steve, and he says, Toby, just not quite yet. But I'm still in the running. So, it's one magazine that I open up and I tear out about half of the pages because it's so interesting. The business is about capitalism. What a shock.
Yeah, well, I got to tell you something he did. At the end of the show, we got off the air, and he said, I really enjoyed that. I'd love to come back. You guys were fun. And 3 days later, Toby, in the mail, Clay and I get an autographed book, a letter saying how much fun he had, and a Forbes tie that probably cost more than any suit I have in my closet.
He's a class act. What can I say? If you think you're going to get stuff from me, don't hold your breath. But I do have a new book coming out about September called Next Big Thing Investing, and it's all about what I call the transformation economy. I sort of divide the world into two types of economies. There's the transformation economy where people are executing strategies, executing big visions, inventions, disruptive events to transform their businesses, transform society. And then there's sort of the status quo. And the status quo economy is people are basically trying to defend what they have while they lose it and not spending the time, resources, or really energy to take what it takes to transform in this rapidly changing world. So when that book comes out, gentlemen, signed, and I don't have a tie, but I have an excellent T-shirt.
Okay, and we want you to come back when the book comes out, okay? Because that'll be fun to talk about that.
You said something about their business, but my understanding is that we didn't build these businesses.
Not only did we not build these businesses, we're also guilty of increasing the cost of healthcare premiums as small business people. I mean, it really is a fascinating construct that our president. I mean, listen. What would you expect from someone who's a constitutional lawyer, never actually, ran a business or actually took any risk other than political risk, and it hasn't had employees? I mean, he's got 2.8 million employees right now, but he's a little bit far removed from the day-to-day stuff, and so if you live sort of in that laboratory of academia or the luxury of not actually having to make a payroll or not actually having to produce something, then you would come to the conclusion, and you'd make a statement like he did in California, which I was probably the most shocking statement I've ever heard. Mr. Obama does not have a very firm grip or grasp of the concept of free markets or capitalism or really even basic, economics. And he does have a very firm grip on the idea that that businesses are bad, and that the way for prosperity for middle Americans is to reduce the profitability and opportunity for those businesses, and then somehow raise the level of cash which is redistributed from them to the middle class. And that is his idea of prosperity. It's the most amazing thing I have ever seen, and yet, at some point in time, if 50% of people pay no taxes and basically 20% of people pay all the taxes and 70% of people are getting more cash out of the federal system than they put in, that's pretty hard to stop, man. How do you get 70% of people to vote against themselves?
Exactly. Our guest by phone is truly a man of the people, since he was once one of them. Bulls and Bears analyst, Tobin Smith.
Tobin, if we could...
I'm going to write that one down.
I just came up with that as we're talking.
Usually Neil Cavuto is the one where we do on weekly. We do this sort of business blitz on Fox Business Network, and he'll always end to say, we'll talk about houses or something, and he'll say, well, Toby, it doesn't really apply to you since you actually own your homes and stuff. I said, so when is it bad to own your home and not have a mortgage? Is that a bad thing? Does that make me a bad person?
If we could increase taxes on those people that are currently paying it, we could give more stuff to people that don't pay taxes.
Yes, there's no question. Taxing your way to prosperity is how free market capitalism works. There's no question. And by the way, that sounds so sarcastic, but there's people that I guarantee you, believe that.
Yeah, they're in the White House.
We just had bad. I'd say fiscal conservatives have had very, very bad messaging for a number of years. Reagan sort of got it right, and then we sort of fell apart. The idea of trickle-down economics, whether you actually understand the concept or not, is just a really bad terminology. Trickle sounds like all the stuff is staying at the top and then a little bit trickles down. And that's just obviously not the way it works. For every American startup company, first off, 40% of all the companies listed, as public companies have been started by immigrants or, founded by sons of or daughters of immigrants. And yet, the fiscal conservatives somehow wound up being bad guys about immigration. We've always been about the immigration of the best and the brightest. We weren't too really big on immigration of the dumbest and the slowest. But, the reason why I'm always confused now by the sort of conservative world is that we used to say the Democrats are the ones who had a circular firing squad, and their strategy was to circle up and inspire. And it seems like the conservatives of the world have been doing a fair amount of circular firing squads these days.
No question about it.
We need some new words, gentlemen, and I depend on you guys to come up with them.
Well, since we're both in the insurance industry, this is so much fun for us, talking about the healthcare industry, especially Clay. Everybody says that it's going to cost at least 800,000 jobs. That was initially. Now that the costs are doubling, do you think we're looking at maybe...
No. California said the cost was going down in California.
Well, yeah, and Obama said you're not going to, lose your own doctor.
And a couple of days later, Tobin, the Wall Street Journal came out and said California lied.
Can you believe that?
They did. I fortunately or unfortunately spent time as an insurance analyst years ago, and have a lot of friends in the business. And you have to go with the analogs or the comparisons that actually are comparisons. So, in the state of New York, they went to a community rating. This idea that you can't charge extra for existing health conditions, or you can charge, but you can only do up to a certain percentage. Which then, of course, attracts the least healthy people in the insurance pool. They utilize the most health products, and the costs go up until the point where the insurance company plan can't sustain itself, so it either has to go out of business and get out of the business, which raises the prices for everybody because there's less competition,
adverse
or they raise
selection
their
at its
premiums
best.
so they stay in business. And when you went to a community rating, and then you added on all these other, important things like a variety of new benefits, which all cost money. What happens is in the first 5 years in Massachusetts, when they went to this, of course, all the people who had never, had any treatment. Now you're getting treatment that's been delayed for 5 or 6 years, so everything's worse.
Yeah.
And the
Tobin,
solution to that problem is not to create this community-rated open system. The solution to that problem is to do what healthcare paying companies do the private pay people, which is they've cut out almost all of the fraud and waste in their system by using modern technology. To give you an example, in Medicare and Medicaid, because remember the other idea here was
Tobin, hold on a second.
Essentially provide Medicare and Medicaid for everybody.
Yeah, Tobin, I'm going to do my Brenda impersonation. We're going to pick it up right there with Tobin Smith on Taking Care of Business on Koerner Radio News Talk 1180.